It should be inside the charging case. Started live stream already. Whenever you're ready. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Reading from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 32nd chapter, verse 2. Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat
Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat Kamamudha Parankaha
Yajate Krutibir Daivam
Yajate Kratubhir Devan
Pritinscha Shraddhaya Vitaha
Pitrincha Shaddayanvitaha
Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat
Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat
Kamamudha Paramukha
Kamamudha Parankaha
Yajate Kratibir Devam
Yajate Kratubhir Devan
Pitrischa Shraddhaya Vitaha
Pitrincha Shaddayanvitaha
Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratibir Devam Pitrischa Shraddhaya Vitaha
Pitrincha Shaddayanvitaha
Sachapi Bhagavad Dharmat Kamamudha Paramukha
Devan
Pitrinscha Shraddhaya Vitaha
Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha Sachapi Bhagavad Dharma Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratubhir Devan Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha Sachapi Bhagavad Dharma Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratubhir Devan Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha Sachapi Bhagavad Dharma Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratubhir Devan Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha Sachapi Bhagavad Dharma Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratubhir Devan Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha Sachapi Bhagavad Dharma Kamamudha Paramukha Yajate Kratubhir Devan Pitrinscha Shraddhayanvitaha
Sa, he, cha api, moreover, Bhagavad Dharmat, from devotional service, Kama infatuated by lust, Paramukha, having the face turned away, Yajate, worships, Kratubhi, with sacrificial ceremonies, Devan, the demigods, Pittru, forefathers, Cha, and Shraddha, with faith, Anvitaha, endowed. Translation report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All right. Such persons are bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification, and therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness, devotional service. And it is said that persons who worship demigods have lost their intelligence. They are much attracted to sense gratification, and therefore they worship the demigods. It is, of course, recommended in the Vedic scriptures that if one wants money, health, or education, then he should worship the various demigods. A materialistic person has manifold demands, and thus there are manifold demigods to satisfy his senses. The Grihamedis who want to continue a prosperous materialistic way of life generally worship the demigods and or the forefathers by offering pinda or respectful oblations. Such persons are bereft of Krishna consciousness and are not interested in devotional service to the Lord. This kind of so-called pious and religious man is the result of impersonalism. The impersonalists maintain that the Supreme Absolute Truth has no form, and that one can imagine any form he likes for his benefit and worship in that way. Therefore, the Grihamedis, or materialistic men, say that they can worship any form of a demigod as worship of the Supreme Lord, especially amongst the Hindus. Those who are meat eaters, prefer to worship the goddess Kali because it is prescribed that one can sacrifice a goat before that goddess. They maintain that whether one worships the goddess Kali or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, or any demigod, the destination is the same. This is first-class rascaldom, and such people are misled. But they prefer this philosophy. Bhagavad Gita does not accept such rascaldom, and it is clearly stated that such methods are meant for persons who have lost their intelligence. The same judgment is confirmed here, and the word kamamudha, meaning one who has lost his sense or is infatuated by the lust attraction for sense gratification, is used. Kamamudhas are bearers of Krishna consciousness and devotional service and are infatuated by a strong desire for sense gratification. The worshippers of demigods are condemned both in the Bhagavad Gita and Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Translation again. Such persons are bearers of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification. And therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness, devotional service. So here, Prabhupada is nicely talking and describing the difference between devotees and non-devotees and how many people who are ignorant worship the demigods and for sense gratification purposes. So persons who are actually intelligent know to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this, they bring up the verse from the Bhagavad Gita 7.2, and they describe how those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So there Prabhupada also describes that those who are free from all material contamination surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in devotional service as long as the material contamination is not completely washed off. They are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so attracted by external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they become free from all material lust. In the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender unto Vasudeva and worship him. As stated in the Bhāgavatam, second canto, 3rd chapter, verse 10, less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally people who do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided, because in the Vedic literature, there are recommendations for worshiping different gods for different purposes. For example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that certain purposes, demigods, are better than the Supreme Lord. But the pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 5.142, it is stated that Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the master of all others, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for the satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. So, just thinking about this, I think about different pastimes and different ways that when you travel, when you go around the world. So right now I'm actually coming back from Africa. I've been in Africa for 8 months, traveling around. I've been on workation, as I've been saying. And a part of that, I have been visiting different temples and just seeing different ways that Krishna consciousness is practiced and not practiced, and how, and literally I'm coming from Egypt right now. So in this verse when they're talking about the worship of the demigods, I'm like, okay, when I went to the pyramids, they literally worshiping the sun god, Ra, so in understanding how, all over the world was Vedic consciousness and culture, and how we're able to see these fragments in different spaces and places around the world, it's amazing. So whether it be in Mexico, Teotihuacan, the Temple of the Sun, or whether it be in, Egypt, you see the remnants of Vedic culture all in civilization all over the world. So thinking about this and thinking about how, so currently I'm a professor at 2 universities in different ways in the Department of English. And so we're surrounded by material consciousness, and we're surrounded by the way this whole material world is constructed. And literally, everything that this verse is saying is the opposite of what I'm surrounded by daily. This is why I love coming here and going to Detroit as well, and just putting my feet on the altar and being able to serve in some kind of way or another, because you have to wash, you have to continue washing, because if not, we'll continue to be contaminated. And association is very important. So just thinking about the material contamination and how we are so fortunate, how you all who actually live here are so fortunate, whether it was inside the temple, outside the temple, how you actually are able to come and see the deities daily, and actually able to take worship of the deities daily, actually able to get darshan. So this is what happens. I feel like Krishna has this pastime with me where he pulls me close and then I go far away. So right now I live in Kentucky. So Kentucky, there's a Hindu temple there, as Prabhupada's talking about. Hindu, where a lot of Hindus, worship the demigods. So you go all over the world, you see this practice in many different ways, and you see how people are ultimately just wanting to fulfill their material desires. And so the whole thing is, it doesn't matter which ashram you're in, which part of life you're in, which stage of life. The whole point is to actually surrender unto Krishna and serve him in all ways. But oftentimes we get derailed and distracted. And so this is why having Prabhupada's program that he has so nicely every single day, going to Mangalartik, taking advantage of chanting, being able to serve Prashad, being able to serve the deity, being able to serve devotees in so many different ways. We are so fortunate. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was talking about back in 2001 when they had the Kumbh Mela, and I was just, talking about these different pastimes and, going there for the first time. And just being able to see so many different types of devotees and non-devotees, and everyone coming together for spiritual sangam. So at the Mahakumbh, we were enjoying different pastimes we were enjoying seeing how people practice Krishna consciousness or did not practice Krishna consciousness. And many people there were definitely worshiping demigods or, thinking of themselves as God or personalists in some way or another. And some, so for example, there was a woman that was in Samadhi for 3 days, and then all of a sudden she comes out for the Mahakumbh. And then, there's different types of babas, there's different types of yoga systems, so many different types of people, exploring and experimenting and just really diving deep based on where they are in this lifetime. So it's interesting, a lot of times, there's a thin line a lot of times where it's like, okay, we know we have the highest philosophy, we know we have the highest science, But yet a lot of times we think we're more superior than everyone else. But the whole thing is like, if we're truly seeing things properly, we understand that everybody really has Krishna in their heart. So everybody ultimately is a devotee somewhere. They're just covered over. And so that doesn't mean that we treat people less or more, less than because they're not practicing Krishna consciousness. We respect and understand because many lifetimes we've been just like them. And we're so fortunate in this lifetime that we're actually able to be here. So, one of the things, I just remember some devotees walking by, and they're just like, it's the perfect time to go in, perfect time to enter. And we're the pure devotees. We're supposed to be the ones that are entering. We're just like, okay, this could be possibly a case, but even if it is the case, we're supposed to be humble as well. So how do you balance the humbleness, humility, as well as understanding that, as many places in the Bhāgavatam, when devotees that are chanting enter certain waters are actually purifying it. So how do you, a lot of people are going to wash away their sins at the same time, we're supposed to be helping, whether Ganga or whatever waters. So it's fascinating to see the consciousness at different times. And so just, going. So at the time I was hanging out with different types of Babas, and we were able to actually enter. So I was hanging out with actually Nagabatas, which are naked saints. And we were actually able to enter the Kumbh Mela, the waters, at the right time, at the right space, in the right place. And it was all because, who knows, some type of weird, strange mystery. But it was fascinating as I was hanging out with them and just seeing, like, okay, what is their whole goal? Their whole goal basically is to go into Brahma in many different ways. And it's like, oh my gosh, even if you're able to go up to the Brahma Jyoti, like, after a while you're gonna get bored. You're gonna get bored. You're not gonna, even in this material world, when we're by ourselves, like for a while, it's like, okay, me, I travel alone a lot of times, and so I'm just, I'm used to being alone. But then after a while, it's like, okay, I need to see people. I need to go ahead and get association, or else, so in the same way would be like the Brahma Jyoti, going up there. So going to all these different spaces and places and just seeing, at the same time, also seeing how communication is always taking place in some way or another. I couldn't speak Hindi, I can't speak Hindi. But still, we were able to communicate through body movements and to understand the philosophy of life. And it's so fascinating, when you travel. I feel like Krishna shows you exactly where you are, what you need to work on, how you need to work on it, and gives you opportunities to serve in different ways. And you'll see, literally, I always think about what Bhakti Tirtha Swami would say, that, right now as devotees, we are so fortunate. And we have this opportunity. Everybody that we're seeing, literally, needs to get some type of prasadam, because you don't know how many more lifetimes it's going to take for them to be able to actually find a devotee. So you may be their only link. So, you have to give them something. And if you don't give them something, then basically you're being a miser and you have not done your duty in some way or another. So this is so literally I was just in Angola for 3 months. I think there are some devotees up north, but I wasn't able to meet them in Cabinda. So I was there, and I'm like, oh, there's no books in Portuguese, I don't have anything. I'm like, okay, let me quickly make some cards and put the mantra on it. I don't even know Hare Krishna websites in Portuguese, so I can direct them to that. So I'm like, okay, let me just give Bhakti Damodar's address so that at least he can connect with the devotees to Brazilian devotees, and then maybe something they'll be able to actually teach Krishna consciousness in some way or another. So, but it's just anybody who's even attracted to you in some way or another, literally, it's not you, it's just Krishna. All they need and want is Krishna, but they have no clue, they have no idea. So this is, so literally, it was just fascinating. So I wake up early in the morning there, go to the beach, chant, then do yoga. After a few weeks, or after a week, literally people are like, can you teach me meditation? Can you teach me yoga? And I'm like, I'm here to do my research. Technically, I'm not. I have to focus. But I'm like, Krishna's giving you something to focus on and making sure you're staying engaged. So it's, so ended up, inviting people to chant in just amazing spaces. And you just never know. It also just reminds me of one time when I was in Japan. I used to live in Japan for 4 years. And going to the temple, I used to live in Kyoto, which is an hour away from Tokyo. Not an hour, one by the Shinkansen, the bullet train. It'd be 2 hours. So it's like on the other side of the country. And so there, I was so happy to go, but I was going for a massage workshop, like a Vedic workshop. And there, I was like, I've never been to the Tokyo temple, I want to go to the temple, and so my mind was like, it's like, I have to go to the temple, I have to go to the temple. But I wasn't going to be able to go if I'm doing this workshop. And so I ended up staying at the Space and Place, and I noticed how, so there, the person that was like my friend that I knew from different spaces, she was like, okay, I want you to teach them how to chant, and then I also want you to teach them how to offer food. And so I'm just like, this is like a whole different subject, a whole different environment, and you're asking me to do this. And so while I was doing that, all of a sudden, like, I see, like, Krishna did not want me to go to the temple, he wanted me to make the temple wherever I was. So everywhere you go, as you say, every time you get on the everywhere you go, literally you're walking temple. And whether or not we remember this or not, that's another thing. So the whole aspect of watching people and watching how they actually immerse themselves in actually really paying attention. So Japan culture is completely different. Like, I feel like a lot of things are a lot more subtle, and they really pay attention to every single detail. So when I was like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna, right now we're offering this food to God. A lot of times there will be kami-san. But so we're offering this food to God, and we want to make sure that He accepts it. So you have to pray with intensity, with all your heart, that God will accept it. Man, I have never seen so many focused people at the same time. Like literally, you could feel the energy in the room of like intense desire for the Lord to accept the food. And I'm just like, all right, Krishna, can I pick up some of this? Can I pick up some of this intensity and like also focus, dedication, and love, like in sincerity? It's just like, okay, this is a society full of atheists, but if they just had the proper direction, they can totally change, and they are. Another time I was on the train, so Kamitani Maharaj used to come, and I was in Kyoto, and then he was in Osaka, and so like every time he would come, he was like, all right, let's go to the party now. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. And so one time I'm on the train, and this is also, thank God I was in Japan, because I knew to make the cards. In Japan, they have these beautiful like Hare Krishna cards, and it's just like, okay, it's small enough that you can hold on to it. And so, like, one time we were in the train, and he passed out cards to all these, like, kids. All of a sudden, you could hear, like, the whole train saying, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it was like all these different, at the same time. You could just totally feel the whole train being transported. And you could feel that connection to the spiritual world. The spiritual world's here right now. And so the whole thing is, where is our consciousness? Like, where are we, what are we doing, and how are we actually helping ourselves become more engaged so that we can see Krishna everywhere in everything that we do. So right now, technically, I'm undercover as a Hare Krishna at my university. And so I'm like, all right, Prabhupada, like, what do you want me to do here? Like, I can't really come out and, like, do the Bhakti Yoga, who knows? Right now, it might happen anyway. It's like my desire, which is great. But so I'm just like, all right, let me get some books, get the books, and basically put some information of how to get a hold of myself or other devotees, and let's put them in the little libraries. There's tons of little libraries, which are like little boxes in different neighborhoods. Put the books there, and that way you can do service in some way or another. Also, of course, giving prashad at different times. But what's interesting is in my job, I'm like, okay, I'm not, I do my stuff and I keep it to myself. But those that are aware, there are people that can tell, what you're into or not into. So I had a coworker, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she was, I could tell she's very spiritually inclined and metaphysical. And she was like, I want you to teach me how to chant. I'm like, what? Like, you're not even like, what's going on? It's like, out of all the things you want me to teach you, and I'm like, Krishna, okay. And so much for staying undercover. And so literally she started chanting. And she started chanting with super intensity. And I'm not sure what it is. There's certain people, I feel like, literally she's like, my feet feel like they're on fire. What is going on? And I'm just like, don't worry, keep on chanting. It's like, oh, please don't do a spontaneous question. Oh, you never know with certain people. But but definitely, because she could tell certain things, and yeah. So the whole point of like, traveling So I used to have a prayer, like, all right, everywhere I go, I want to, like, without saying a word, and still I'm not there yet, but, without saying a word, I want to be able to influence people in a positive way. So the whole thing is like, when we're chanting japa or chanting in different things or reading, how can we impact people in the most sincere way? Purity is the force, and the whole thing is like the best way to actually have more impact is do everything with better precision and as pure as we can. And one person met a devotee, and this devotee was like told, like, you don't have to say anything. Literally, I can hear the Hare Krishna mantra like reverberating off of you, without saying a word. And I'm like, that is the way, that I want to be like that. I want to be just like that, without saying a word, people that are in tune, they can hear. But there's certain times you can tell, like, people don't want to associate with you because they can feel certain things. It's like, that's anti what they are. And so you get treated certain ways because of it. And as I find it funny, then other times you can see that, when you're going around the world and you're looking at people, like, people will smile and engage in different ways. So the whole thing is, no matter what's going on, just to remember, how can we serve and try to limit our connection to sense gratification in this material world? So understanding that the worship of demigods is not the way to go. I think in the past time, like when we were trying to get money for Krsna-śakti, and I think one time I ended up chanting to Kubera. I was like, I want grenades, like, I want this to happen. I want it to happen. I want it to happen, as soon as possible. And so I was like, all right, Kubera, you're serving Krishna. But, like, since you're serving through Krishna, can you, like, do whatever? And so I ended up telling Gurudev about it. He was like, come on. He was like, you were going to get it anyway. He was like, why didn't you just, like, go to Krishna? Like, Krishna was going to give it to you. You don't go through, like, the menial servants, and not that they're menial, but, you don't go through the other servants, like, when Krishna is the controller. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so, you just think about, like, different ways. So in this verse, I was kind of happy, not happy, but kind of happy to see that they were talking about, so especially amongst Hindus, those who are meat eaters prefer to worship goddess Kali because it is prescribed that one can sacrifice the goat before that goddess. They maintain that whether one worships the goddess Kali or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, or any demigod, the destination is the same. Literally, I feel like the other day somebody was just telling me that, like, Krishna is like, it's a little serious, and it's like, no, it's actually worse, but I'm just going to be quiet and listen to what you have to say. But here, so I've been to many different spaces, and especially in Brazil and Cuba and other spaces, goat sacrifice is a part of the process. That's exactly what you do. You cut off a goat's head and you offer it, but you really, literally realize how all these spiritual epistemologies are connected and are, literally joined. It's like, okay, I'm like listening to stuff in Spanish, like, okay, you're putting the tabernacle, the God's, just certain things on the altar, and it's like, whew, yeah. But the whole thing is like, if this is where they are, at least they are not atheists, That's the whole thing is like, okay, where are they? What are they trying to do? How are they trying to come closer in the way that they understand? All we can do is try to give a little bit, but not be attached to the results. I don't know about you guys. A lot of times, like when you're trying to preach in different ways, a lot of times we become like attached, like, oh, come on, like, can't you see it in my way? But the whole thing is like, okay, when we're preaching in different ways, how can we come and meet them where they are and give them Krishna in the way that they will, it's just like a different language. I speak Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese. And the whole thing is like, I can't speak English, say, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to chant Hare Krishna. No, I need to learn how to say that in Spanish, I need to learn how to say it in Portuguese or Japanese. It's not going to work. So the same thing in terms of preaching. Understanding time, place, and circumstance is very, very important. So, I think about like when I used to live in Spain, and I was in Granada and a devotee came to visit, and they were like, oh my God, you're living with meat eaters, how could you? And like, came in and like, you need to do this and that and that. I'm like, dude, I've been preaching in my own way, like to these people, and by coming off as a fanatic, you're not going to be able to get across anything. When I was just in South Africa, I was just talking to a devotee, and they were talking with Krdna-śakti Maharaj. And he was just like saying to that devotee, I just want you to be happy. What does that mean? I just want you to be happy. How are we actually going to be happy? The only way we're going to be happy is actually if we're serving Krishna. Like, I mean, if you think about the most ecstatic times of your life, when are you the most happy? You know? It's like, it's not in all these like material accolades or whatever. It's when we're serving Krishna in some way or another, serving devotees. So like the whole thing is, you know, how can we make ourselves happy in Krishna consciousness? Okay, yes, don't be attached to us. The world is horrible. Yes, we understand that. But the whole thing is like, if we actually had our consciousness in the right place, we would see that everywhere is a spiritual world, and these are different pastimes taking place. But a lot of times we get stuck on other things and we're not actually able to see how Krishna is everywhere. He is communicating with us at all times, whether it be through birds, whether it be through the air, whether it be through different signals, whether it be through different devotees. Everyone is your teacher in some way or another. So how are we actually taking to Krishna consciousness in that way? So, you know, I love it when Prabhupada like goes in and you know, rascaldom. No, Bhagavad does not accept such rascaldom. And it is clearly stated that such methods are meant for persons who have lost their intelligence. The same judgment is confirmed here that the word kamamudha, meaning that one who has lost the sense or is infatuated by lust of attraction for sense gratification is used. So kamamudhas are bereft of Krishna consciousness, and devotional service are infatuated by strong desire for sense gratification. The worshippers of demigods are condemned both in the Bhagavad Gita and the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. So when we're thinking about, you know, we're all here because we have desires in some way or another. We are all here and we're here to purify ourselves in some way. So by pointing out, they are such ignorant fools! How dare they worship whatever, demigods, boats, whatever. The whole thing is to be compassionate, be loving, be kind. Because the whole thing is you were that person in another lifetime. And a lot of times when you are not able to, you know, actually show that kind of compassion, you get judged in the same way that you're judging other people, and that is devotees and non-devotees. You know, I think a lot of devotees a lot of times really, you know, do not appreciate that aspect, but that's, you know, when you look at things in a different perspective, everyone is connected. So understanding how we do not want to be the Grihamedis, but for those that are working in the material world, how are we able to maintain and keep our Krishna consciousness? Like a lot of times the real test is like once you go outside the temple. You know, when you have to live on your own and when you have to live in certain spaces, even in the temple, it's very difficult sometimes. You know, it's not the easiest. So imagine, you know, living outside, you know, having to balance both worlds, you know, and having to make sure that you're keeping Krishna in the center. Prabhupada in one of his lectures was talking about how, basically, how can we be best devotees? So a person was talking about how to become the best devotee. So Prabhupada was talking about Uttama Adhikaris. And he was saying, while I'm preaching, how can I say that I am the best devotee? Just like Radharani, she does not see anyone as a non-devotee. Therefore, we should try to approach Radharani. And the person's name was Bob, so who is this? And Prabhupada was explaining Radharani, Krishna's consort. And then Prabhupada continues, anyone approaches Radharani, she recommends to Krishna, here's the best devotee. He's better than me, and Krishna cannot refuse. That is the best devotee. But it is not to be imitated. Quote, I have become the best devotee, therefore I have stopped. That is the third stage. So even the best devotee, without being the best devotee, he cannot preach. Actually, Acharya, he comes to the second stage. He has the vision of Dvisat, somebody envious of God. But it is not the vision of the best devotee. Best devotee sees, quote, nobody is envious of God. Everyone is better than me, unquote. Just like Chaitanya Charitamrita Krishnadas Kaviraj, he says, I am the lowest worm in stool. So, Krishna is the author, and Krsna-śakti says in Adi Lila 5205, he's not making a show. He's feeling like that I am the lowest. Everyone is the best, but I am the lowest. Everyone is engaged in Krishna's service. I am not engaged. So really kind of trying to meditate on how we are trying to be devotees in some way or another. We're trying to be the best way we can, and how, wherever we are and whatever stage we're in, but how can we make sure that we also remain humble and also maintain that we are the lowest of the low? I mean, if Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying this, what to speak of the rest of us? Do we even, have a chance at all? So really understanding how, so I just always think, so in terms of like my Krishna consciousness, my dad, he was Muslim, my mom was agnostic, growing up, and so later on, I became acquainted with devotees when I was 11, and later on, when I was 20.
I just want to make an interruption. So, based on that story, she was teaching me about reincarnation when I was 4 years old. So, I'm not sure where you became a devotee later.
Can't do that.
So, what's the connection there?
Yeah, no. As it said in the Bhāgavatam, when I was in India, I know that I was a pious witch in another lifetime. And therefore, this is the only chance. Yeah. No, yeah. So I mean, I knew I'd been here before. And so I was like, I couldn't take to Christianity, I couldn't take to any other thing, because I know, I was like, I've been here too many times, and I am sick of coming here. So, but yeah. So, just thinking about that. So definitely. So later on, so I always think about when I almost drowned in the ocean. And so I saw that my younger brother became a devotee, my mom became a devotee, my aunt became a devotee. Everybody who did not like or was not favorable to Krishna consciousness became a devotee. And I was very upset with this. I'm like, how is Bhakti Tirtha Swami taking my family? Every time somebody was initiated, I could tell the difference, and it was really frustrating for me because I wanted my family. They were mine. But I could feel they were going to Gurudev and Prabhupada. How could this be? So I'm like, all right, everybody who did that ended up becoming one. So I'm going to be neutral, I'm going to be equipoise, and I'm going to go to Latin America, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to, find my true spiritual path. So traveling to Latin America, I would write Bhakti Tirtha Swami, because in my mind at the time, he was like my guru psychic friend. And so as he was my guru psychic friend, I would just write and tell him every single thing that was happening to me. One time I told him something, and he was just like, so he's like, okay, so if you keep on messing with dirt, you're going to be recycled by it. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? End up going to a club, hanging out in Quito, met a girl in the club. She invited me to go to her house. Next weekend, I'm in Guayaquil, a whole other region. At her place, I go to her house, and she has the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto. Oh my gosh, 3rd canto. Ah! 3rd canto, and it was in English. And I'm just like, this girl can't even speak English. Why does she have the Bhāgavatam here? So I'm like opening and looking at him, like, yeah, this does feel like home, but yeah, the pictures are so beautiful. So from there I go to the beach, which is where we're supposed to go the whole time. The whole weekend it rains. Raining. And the last day that we were supposed to go home and go back to school, it was sunny, a perfect day. So it was my first time meeting the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean and I don't think we're good friends. So literally a few minutes later, we enter the water. It's like, let's skip school and let's stay here. This is what we came for. Skip school, go into the water. Next thing I know, there's an undercurrent. It's taking me further back, and I almost drowned. And I'm just like, really? So this is what Bhakti Tirtha Swami was talking about? So literally, you just gonna take me out like that? So I'm like, all right, Hare Krishna, good luck for next life. I'm out. And next thing I know, some little teenagers on surfboards come and save us. And they tell us literally a week before, 2 older people were here, and we tried to save them, we couldn't, and they drowned. So
I get out, I look up at the sky is exactly like the third canto pictures that I was looking at, and I was like, ah, God is trying to kill me, like, how dare you? And then I like was super upset and wrote back to Church Swami, and was like, Krishna tried to kill me. He's like, no, Krishna saved you, what more do you want to change? And I'm like, no, I'm 20, like, we're supposed to be having fun at this age. And so, so that kept on, so these little pastimes, then I ended up going to Colombia, and everywhere I went, I would see devotees. And I'm like, yo. So my friend that almost drowned with me, her parents were Taoists and my parents were Hare Krishna. We both knew we were supposed to change, but we didn't want to change. We were not ready. And so, go to Colombia, end up like going and meeting Taoists, end up becoming initiated by the Taoists. Actually, before I went there, Bhakti Swami wrote me a letter, and he was like, I'm your guru. And he's like, I don't know why you keep on playing around. I'm just like, who do you think you are telling me you're my guru? This is how smart, like, I was like, yeah, whatever. And so I continue, and so go to Colombia, end up meeting with the Taoists there, end up becoming initiated, take 2 initiations with them. Oh, good Lord. They had like 33 different things that you had to do for everything. So this is why after becoming a Taoist, like you couldn't sit on anything, you couldn't eat anything, you had to be impeccable with the word. So 33 different things you could not do. And so after taking these initiations, I was like, 4, it'll be easy. Yeah, so like, and then also I was like, I refuse to be a fanatical because, like you can become super fanatic to the point that you are not able to actually be a human being and actually really connect with people. So yes, we're supposed to be strict and we're supposed to be, as strict as we can with ourselves, but with others, you give grace, you give mercy, But yeah. So end up becoming initiated with them, go back, my father passes away, and yeah.
Can you share the story about before Dad passed, and you were thinking that he may pass, and you asked Guru a question about that and his response?
Oh, yeah. So, so Gurudev, so I was trying to decide, I had just come back from Mexico, and I'm like, I want to continue learning Spanish, let me go to Latin America somewhere else. And so, but I'm like, I know my dad's going to die. Like, I know before I go there, like, he's going to die. And I can just see he's about to die. And so he was just like, yeah. He's like, he's going to die, your mama's going to die, your brother's going to die, your aunt's going to die. Basically, everybody in this world that you know is going to die. And I'm, at the time, as a materialist, I'm like, no, how could you say such a thing? Yeah.
The question she asked, she goes, will my father pass away during this time
I forgot to ask.
Or will my father pass away while I'm gone? Should I come back to America or not? And he goes, your dad's going to die, your brother's going to die, your mom's going to die. It just starts going through the whole field. They say everybody is going to die.
We're all going to die. Right. Yeah, no, it's totally, so that was like the beginning of like peeling away, and I was like, really? Like, who wants to think about death? I'm here to enjoy, so that sense gratification, and keeping Krishna not in the center. But Krishna, once you meet Krishna, once you meet beautiful Krishna, you can't escape him. So like, I literally would just be walking down the street and devotees would be like chanting Harinam, doing Harinam. I'd go to like certain spaces and places, Pasto, Colombia, where, is known for lots of drugs. And I'm like, the devotees also looked like they were very interesting there. But I'm like, hey, they're devotees, and, just go to different spaces. And everywhere I went, I just kept on, getting the association. But I'm like, no. So I'm Taoist now. I'm Taoist. And so anyway, because I guess, time's almost up. So when I go to Vrindavan, I'm there. I'm just like, all right, since your name is Krishna here, Krishna, I need for you to reveal whether I'm supposed to be a devotee or Taoist in this lifetime. And by reading the Bhāgavatam, he helped me understand a little bit more. I think I'm going to actually wrap up now because I think the time has come. But I would like to leave 5 minutes for questions or comments. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your realizations on your travels. What's one of the biggest reflections that you can share from your travels throughout Africa recently, going to the different ISKCON centers? Was there any common theme that you can share from your travels going through Africa recently that could be shared here that could be of value to the devotees here, or any reflections that you had in that regard, just going to so many temples and seeing so many devotees, the goods, the bads, the ups, the downs, the struggles, etc., and the reflections there.
Yes, no, I mean, it's amazing to see devotees almost everywhere that you go, and just thinking like how Prabhupada was so much, like, so I actually just gave class in Kenya, so they have a day for women, every Friday is Women's Day in Kenya to present, and they had me speak, and I was just thinking, like, when I lived in Spain, devotees would say, oh, this place is not as fortunate because Prabhupada never came here. And I was like, I guess, okay, that's a different way to think, but I'm like, it's probably true in some way. And so I'm like thinking like the places that Prabhupada did go. So Kenya is one of those, South Africa is another. Like you can see there is a special potency that is different from other spaces that did not receive Prabhupada's direct, connection. So luckily, Prabhupada sent his disciples in different ways. And so just seeing the differences. So I mean, like when I was in Nigeria and, seeing His Holiness Bhakti Damodar and just seeing, Gurudev's legacy and Prabhupada's legacy, in different spaces. And then also seeing, it was beautiful. So, I mean, it was interesting because, Prabhupada said, this is Krishna consciousness. You're supposed to take it. We're not supposed to become like Indians nowadays. We're supposed to take the culture and adapt it to where we are. So, how many places and spaces are actually adapting Prabhupada's philosophy to the local culture? I feel like it's beautiful, like when I go to Mexico and you see like, okay, you're getting Mexican prasadam, you're getting like all these kind of things, and they're adapting it to their culture. And it's like, okay, how are we doing this so that people are actually able to take it? Because if it's too strange, a lot of times people are just like, okay, that's nice. That's a little different. So it's beautiful to see, which things are working in which spaces. So Zambia, a beautiful temple there, and it's nice to see devotees, taking up and having Rath Yacha, so I really wish I could go back to the Congo. So Congo, it's interesting because like you can also tell where you've had karma in certain spaces and places. So like, I only went for like 2 weeks to the Congo. So 1 week for a conference, and I met the devotees in Lumumbashi, which you guys are amazing. And then like, return, something was like, okay, you gotta return. And I'm like, let me at least because it took me so much to get this visa. Like I literally, too much. So I returned to Kinshasa, and literally, I feel like I was summoned to Kinshasa. Like, the devotee there was told by Bhakti Tirtha Swami that he should basically preach to traditional chiefs. So as soon as I arrived, I had no idea that I was going to have to give class. And so he's like, okay, you're going to give the class. And then he had me meet, he's like, afterwards, you had to meet with the chiefs. And so it's so beautiful to see like what Mahavishnu Swami and many of these gurus are doing in these different spaces of inspiring people all over. And so, yeah, met with different chiefs and met with the president's brother, met with like militia, not militia, no, not this time, that was in Colombia. Anyway, met with different military, generals, and just like giving Krishna consciousness. So like, it's amazing to see, and I'm just like 1 week, but it was like so full and so intense. And like Krishna knows my propensities. Like, so literally my research in the future probably will be on chiefs and traditional healing and different things like that. And he knows I always enter those kind of spaces, in some way or another, I'm just like, what's going on? How does it relate to Krishna consciousness? And so, so Krishna literally is like, he fulfills your desires in whichever way, so yeah, so I feel like Krishna gives you what you want and like also gives you the best, and he does it better. Like everything that you want or you think you want you want, you can't do it better than Krishna. Like, you can't do it better than Krishna. Like, Krishna knows how to arrange everything. So I went to Johannesburg for the first time, and it was wonderful staying at the Wusa House, and amazing, excellent time. And it was just fascinating to see. South Africa felt just like America in many ways, in terms of also, dealing with crime and certain things. And so I was like, man, I got to go to Namibia. I am not trying to deal with crime. So I'm like, because I've been traveling like so many different places, and you don't have to worry about like safety in the same way like America. Like, we don't think, after Japan, safety is important. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about basic, walking down the street, you could get killed. Like, that's not living. And if you have a choice, So But yeah, no, just seeing how Krishna is so merciful. And then also, for me, I feel like the test was like, Krishna has what he wants, how he wants, and where he wants. You have a vision, you have the way that you see things, but that obviously if things are not happening in the way that you want it to, that means it's not supposed to be happening in that way. And if you want to do certain things, then you need to cultivate it yourself. So a lot of people have all these different ideas of like how Krishna consciousness should be. Yes, all right, need to form different spaces. And so it's beautiful actually to see Prabhu Krishna Das, he and several other devotees in South Africa and Zambia and different spaces have created this Harinam, or what is it called? Rath Yatra committee. Yeah.
What, Arya?
Yes. Yes, Arya, that's what it's called. I was like, I don't know what they're called, but yeah, Arya. And literally, so what they're doing is just fundraising and just going all around and just preaching and just doing Rath Yatras in different spaces that normally would not be touched. Because a lot of times people, become conditioned to stay where it's easier. So a lot of these devotees are dedicated just to going to, Swaziland or different spaces. So right now, I wish I could return to the Congo because they're going to have their first Rath Yatra in Kinshasa. And literally all the traditional chiefs are going to bring out their masks and are going to offer it to Jagannath. I'm like, do you know how powerful this is? Like, do you know how magical and amazing? And do you know like how much mercy, that is, so understanding like Prabhupada and just also like, his disciples, how they are continuing to serve. It's just so inspiring. And then also another thing, just the things that gurus go through, the things, having to listen to everybody's queries and it's a lot, And then to like keep a smile on your face, and so I just feel so bad for Bhakti Tirtha Swami and like all the stuff that he had to put up with, with rascal devotees or non-devotees, and just on all levels, and many leaders throughout. When you actually try to help, you hear a lot of things. And the whole thing is like how, to make sure that we have the proper leaders in the proper positions that are actually able to, help and actually transform and move people forward in their Krishna consciousness. So, those are some. Right. Thank you all. Thank you, and thank you for your time. Hare Krishna. All glory to Prabhupada. All glory to Gurudev. Hare Radhe. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai.